looking for answers, searching for the truth. Come join us on a quest for truth as we dig deep for the answers. Come with us as we uncover sinister government cover-ups, conspiracy theories, satanic rituals, the new world order, and more. Join us as we expose the deep hidden agendas in our world today. Welcome to Red Pill, Quest for Truth. Welcome to Red Pill, Quest for Truth.
Want to know why they don't sell this little green laser at the shooting range? Because if you had it...
If you wake up with a stiff neck, this might change your mornings. I swapped my old pillow for the...
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name's Kyle. This is Alamdar. We're from Lookout Threat Intelligence. We'll be covering essentially our research over the past few years into state-sponsored mobile surveillance malware, particularly from state-backed APT groups like from Russia, China, and North Korea. So a little bit about who we are. Again, as I said, I'm Kyle. This is Alamdar, and then our colleague Christina as well contributed heavily to both the research here that we're presenting as well as the literal content of the slides. So
A security intelligence researcher investigates and analyzes potential security threats, both physical and cyber, to help organizations and governments mitigate risks. They gather and assess information, identify vulnerabilities, and develop strategies to improve security measures and response plans. FBIjobs.gov. Intelligence analysts work closely with special agents and partners throughout the intelligence community to consolidate valuable information into strategic analytic intelligence. They are our first line of defense in identifying and understanding threats and vulnerabilities. Oh, well, okay. Senior Staff Security Intelligence Researcher, Senior Staff Security Intelligence Researcher, Senior Security Intelligence Researcher. Okay. This sounds like we're listening to Kyle at the moment at Black Hat Europe 2024. And in case you don't know what that is, what is Black Hat? Computer security. A black hat refers to a hacker who uses their technical skills for malicious purposes. They also are often the people that help with pen testing. Okay, what is, I should probably say it this way, the Black Hat Conference, because I can spell conference. Black Hat is a series of global cybersecurity conferences. The main event, Black Hat USA, is a large conference held annually in Vegas, attracting security professionals, researchers, and industry leaders. It features training sessions, briefings on the latest research, and an expo hall with security products and solutions. Okay.
she couldn't be with us here today, but without that work, we wouldn't be here in front of you. So you can find us all on LinkedIn if you'd like to look us up. So let's cover a bit of what we'll go over. First, I'll give you kind of an overview of the mobile threat landscape, including kind of Russia, China, North Korea. Then we'll get into more of a deep dive on kind of those APTs and their tactics and tricks that they use to kind of gain device access, counter detections, and we'll get into kind of who's under attack from these threat groups, as well as how we kind of make our attributions here. And then we'll close out the presentation with some takeaways. So let's jump into the overview, starting with Russia. Really, Russian mobile activity dates back to around 2019 with the Monocle family, which we discovered at that time. We now believe that that's used by probably the Turla threat group, or at any rate, some FSB-aligned threat group. This was recently, just last week, it's kind of solidified by some reporting out of Citizen Lab, who found that FSB installs kind of the Monocle family on devices when individuals are arrested, detained. In 2022, we discovered a family we call Bone Spy that we attributed to the Gamma Ray threat group, which is another FSB.
So these are cybersecurity professionals who are protecting our infrastructure and unmasking state-sponsored mobile surveillance malware from Russia, China, and North Korea. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, as it turns out, the majority of the United States apparently has no idea how their warfare doctrine works. Intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, the intelligence community, the police. Since I've been online, it's been ghost story after ridiculousness, and we on the channel have been working very hard to try to help people get caught up to reality. And people were very leery to talk about reality. We had huge groups of people that for what reasons nobody can verify, were misdirecting and lying straight up, gaslighting, obfuscating, all of what you're looking at right there. This is electronic warfare. This is not a gang stalking program. This is intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance with our intelligence community. This is law enforcement. And instead, it's always been presented as MK Ultra and the Havana syndrome. No, it's electronic warfare. It's also biological surveillance with cyber biosecurity. The fusion centers work with our sensors and their fusion to different databases. The FBI has more than just the eGuardian and the Sentinel. They have multiple different types of proprietary software that they use with the Department of Justice, the U.S. Marshals, and then the other components of the intelligence community. They have their own types of oversight. Why am I bringing this up? Last night, the president announced your medical healthcare system that is part of intra-body networking that we've been talking about here on the channel for 3 years. 802.15.4 is old. Nano networks are a big chunk of what they're using now. That means the nano scale, not little tiny robots running around, okay? It could be either or, but that's a different discussion. So here on the channel, we could not figure out for this entire time why a system that's 30 years old, you heard me, 3 decades old, intra-body communication, why anybody was pretending that this was hidden. It's wide open in cybersecurity, cyber biosecurity, biomedical engineering, and instead it was UFO stories and then fake lawfare with lawyers. Now I'm going to present to you here in a moment where the lawfare actually exists so that maybe you have a little bit of hope, because everything has been so dismal for 9 years with everyone lying about bioelectronic medicine, which is where they're headed because telehealth is here to stay. Okay? And it's important now that no more dancing around and entertaining ridiculous notions of UFOs and religions, because we have children, we are adults, and no matter what we think on the spiritual side of it or philosophical, for the atheists, they like to get into philosophy and argue, just like the religious people love to argue about their different denominations and whatever else. And here on the channel, we have a major learning curve because your body is connected to the cloud. The Internet of Things has been updated to the Internet of Everything, which includes people. That would be bodies. And we know this because we take you to Purdue University in human body communication all the time to show you that if they gave you a wearable, you could just take it off. If they were dependent on your phone, you could put it in a Faraday bag. This is national security, not hee-haw. All right. So, Black Hat, that global security conference thing, right? We're going to listen to a recording that was sent in this morning on the Telegram from Aman Jabi.
You've heard how hard it can be to get access to medications like ivermectin, all the things they don't want you to take because they're actually effective and they don't cost all that much, right? You've seen that one before. So it's critical.
And then I'm going to play you some Cash Patel in your FBI.
Aman Jabi, who was at the forefront of digital development in Silicon Valley, California, for 25 years. He left when he recognized the dark side of surveillance technology, choosing instead the peace and beauty of Montana. He's an expert in facial recognition.
It's a technique that is used to uniquely identify the biometrics of any face. So in a device like your smartphone, and most modern smartphones in the last 5 or 7 years, they have a 3D camera module in the front of the phone, which you cannot see. Within that module is a near-infrared projector, which projects tens of thousands of dots on your face. Those dots are then distorted based on the contours and the features of your face. And there's a near-infrared camera then takes a picture of that distortion, captures it, and then reverse engineers the exact profile of your face. In the longer term, facial recognition will be used to unlock your digital identity, which is going to be a tool of control for the agendas that are coming down the pipeline.
Elements of that control are already with us.
Alexa, good morning. Good morning.
You are never alone in your home, and this is why.
You are going to hear this man say the exact same things that I have in my time online. You are never alone in your own home or under your own skin.
All your devices at home and all smart appliances, they are all connected on a wireless network. Many of these devices will have cameras, many will have microphones, and so they are monitoring everything all the time. Your smart appliances are communicating with the smart meter and sending it real-time usage data. If there's a Ring camera also in your home, a mesh network is formed, and all your devices are being tracked within the home, its location, its usage, and all the data is going to Amazon servers. When you leave your home, all modern vehicles are connected to the internet, so your automobile is being tracked.
That would be the vehicle to everything with the Department of Transportation. It's called V2, as in the number 2X.
When you're going under a string of smart LED poles and smart LED lights on the highway and in the streets of your towns and cities, those form a wireless network and are tracking your vehicle. They're tracking all the devices on you, from smartphones to smartwatches when you're walking on the streets. So data is being collected 24/7 continuously on every human being whenever you are within these wireless networks. And it's obviously not good for health also because of all the electromagnetic radiation. In the long term, the plan is to pretty much lock up humanity in smart cities, which is kind of a superset of a 15-minute city. They've sold all the state and local governments and countries that smart cities are about sustainability and the good of the city. But in reality, the language from the UN and WEF and their white papers is all inverted. So air monitoring is really about limiting mobility and no car ownership.
And I said they're going to take your car keys away. Look at the car industry in the last 6 years.
Right? Surveillance, control via LED grid is why the smart lighting is there. Water management is about water rationing. Noise pollution is about speed surveillance. Traffic monitoring is about limiting mobility. And then, of course, energy conservation is all about rationing heat, electricity, and gasoline. Another concept one should be familiar with is called geofencing, and think of it as an invisible fence around you where you cannot go beyond a certain point. And that will be related to your face recognition, digital identity, and access control. Your smart contracts, SoftBrick can turn off your digital currency beyond a certain point from your house.
Yep.
Our world has been turned into a digital panopticon. That means you can be monitored, analyzed, managed, and monetized.
Surveillance capitalists are already making billions of dollars selling our information to big corporations, because this kind of detailed knowledge enables them to predict and influence our behavior.
Welcome to the Internet of Behaviors, Forbes Magazine 2023. So, that was the first thing that I saw this morning. And then we have a few papers to go over, but before we do,
won the presidency not once but twice and made it.
Documents related to the Trump-Russia probe inside multiple burn bags. These burn bags are used to destroy highly classified information. Now, we don't know the nature of the documents just yet and whether anything was actually destroyed. But of course, Director Patel told me about this back in May, that these documents existed and were soon to come to light. Watch.
As much as we know about Crossfire Hurricane, he and I just found out more last week. And we're continuing to work with Congress to put those documents out. That's how vindictive and vicious the former leadership structure here was. Not only did they bastardize the FISA process in light of the American public, they withheld and hid documentation and put it in rooms where people weren't supposed to look. And it's a good thing we're here now to clean it up, and you're about to see a wave of transparency.
But are you saying you found things that even you didn't know about?
Yes. I was a lead Russiagate investigator for the House Intelligence Committee. I'm telling you and the American public that we have now found material and information and people who wanted to hide it from the world.
Now, that was back in May. Fox News Digital reporting one of those documents is the classified annex to Special Counsel John Durham's report, which is now headed to the Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley for release. CIA Director John Rapp.
So while you're watching the Epstein Durham and all this noise with the FBI, what we told you here on the channel is that the intelligence community has been using this ISR, Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance Electronic Warfare System, with companies for 30 years. The hackers helped the DHS. DHS has biological surveillance. And everybody said, that's impossible. We have a Fourth Amendment. And those of us who study the lawfare of the real documentation in our government, we said, no, you don't. You have gross 702 FISA abuse. What did Bill Benny say Obama did years ago? That's right. Obama expanded and weaponized 702. Congress, Senate legalized that abuse. Now, for those of you that don't know, the 702 FISA is supposed to be foreign intelligence. We don't spy on our own American citizens. No, they purchase your metadata from companies. They have loopholes and lawfare all day long within the intelligence community so that they can take any data they want and then distribute databases EO12333 to whoever they want to with proprietary software, unencrypted data, and just a haystack of all the dredging and scraping data handed over to any of the people in the intelligence community, the FBI, etc. It's an engineered system for lawfare, law enforcement, all the way up to your DOJ and everywhere else. And the 702 FISA abuse was renewed last year. They even renewed and expanded the 702 FISA last summer under President Biden. At the beginning of Trump's second term, CIA Director John Ratcliffe was Trump's best pick by far. Why? His history on the Congress HPSCI and stint as DNI. I believe we are going to see how far 702 FISA was weaponized, and this is a good thing. Perhaps once light is shown on 702 FISA abuse will be corrected. And why should synergists give two boop about 702 FISA weaponization? Because it is the legal basis to grab all your digital data and your biometric data, demonstrating how badly Bush, Obama, and Biden weaponized 702 FISA will hopefully force Congress and Senate to finally repeal the surveillance laws by sheer pressure the American people can bring under their representatives. I have always maintained FISA is not something you can lawfare and end. It has to be exposed and handled by the executive branch directly. That's due to the very real lawfare in the Pentagon Law of War and your JAG over at the DOD and all sorts of other behind the scenes type of lawfare they have in the intelligence community. You can't fight laws that are on the books and rubber stamped by the judicial. I am over the moon happy John Ratcliffe was confirmed CIA director. He has been on this for years, but could never discuss these things. Man, this is a massive confirmation of everything former NSA director Bill Binney said, and partially proved best he could through proper channels. So we are going to be, once I get done showing you this clip, going over biometrics enabled intelligence, November 2015. And we are also going to be going over, excuse me a moment, the appropriate Department of Defense Directive 8521.01E, February 21st, 2008, Department of Defense Biometrics. This way, those of you that are all worked up about getting involved in some sort of uprising can calm down and understand that even if you uprose with, I don't know, whoever at your local police or any sort of individual vigilante sort of lawfare, you're not going to get anywhere because you're barking up the wrong trajectory to achieve actual success in the courts. And I want to make sure this data is out there for people so they know where to look.
Ratcliffe broke the news about this annex on Sunday with me on Sunday Morning Futures. Watch.
What hasn't come out yet and what's going to come out is the underlying intelligence that I have spent the last few months making recommendations about final declassification and sent that to the Department of Justice that will come out in the John Durham report classified annex. And what that intelligence shows, Maria, is that part of this was a Hillary Clinton plan, but part of it was an FBI plan to be an accelerant to that fake Steele dossier, to those fake Russia collusion claims by pouring oil on the fire, by amplifying the lie and burying the truth of what Hillary Clinton was up to. And you're right, Maria. John Brennan testified to John Durham in August of 2020. He also testified to the House Oversight Committee in 2022. Hillary Clinton testified before John Durham under oath in 2022. James Comey testified before the Senate committee in September 2020. All of that's within the last 5 years. And much of that testimony is frankly completely inconsistent with what our underlying intelligence that is about to be declassified in the Durham Annex, what that reflects.
So what does this mean for normal people that are not involved with all these politicians? It means that this little private secret commercial system that they've been using with companies since 1995, under your skin, listening to you talk, listening to you think, being inside your body. Now, with the digital twin systems that are part of your new healthcare, That's not new, but now you're going to have a more difficult time pretending it's not there, courtesy of the HHS. And we knew that was coming because they were talking about the wearables and how they had healthcare in rural areas, the 6G healthcare with drones over your home, etc. And most people do not know that the digital twin system is 50 years old. According to your own Pentagon, Congressional Modeling and Simulation Caucus, and you go to page 8, the Department of Defense's real-world digital twins with NVIDIA, the Chief Technology Innovation Officer from Space Force, a Senior Data Science Manager from NAWCTSD, digital twin simulations have been simmering for half a century. That's 50 years. And digital twins aren't just for inanimate objects and people. Now, here on the channel, we have went over and over the Agenda 2030 goals that other man mentioned, or why everyone has a digital twin for 50 years. And that's your Deloitte with your cryptocurrency and your blockchain. Why the biodigital convergence has been using up our tax dollars for 20 years with nanotechnology, bioinfo, and cogno, nanoscience and nanotechnology, biotechnology and biomedicine, including genetic engineering, information technology, including advanced computing and communications, and cognitive science, including cognitive neuroscience. The digital twin being there for 50 years, also being a component of the Agenda 2030 goals under health and medicine. And instead of telling people that these systems were part of big data, the future of our literal infrastructure with cognitive cities, people were told all sorts of crazy. A cognitive city is an advanced type of smart city that utilizes artificial intelligence and data analysis to create a more responsive, personalized, and efficient urban environment. And my problem with all of this is that in a cognitive city, the most important component of all challenges of a city are the citizens themselves. Therefore, it is important to include every single inhabitant in the urban development process. This means that by taking into account every single citizen as sensors, you yourself are a sensor in the whole of the city. A city can further develop itself in such a way that it can fulfill the requirements of the citizens and stay attractive for current as well as potential citizens. Only a collaboration between the city and its citizens makes a successful urban development possible. So you yourself in a cognitive city have an interaction with the city. As a knowledge-based system, a question and answering system is able to give answers and questions in natural language. Thus, an efficient dialogue between human and system should be enabled. On the basis of collected data, big data, the city is able to see which topics the citizens engage with. The Internet of Things. The whole urban environment is equipped with sensors. That is your Trillion Sensors program. That Trillion Sensors program is not emerging. It's part of your Golden Dome. It's part of SOSA, MOSA, OSA.
Avoid these 3 foods like the plague.
Whole milk or almond milk?
Neither.
What milk do you guys like to drink?
We drink oat milk because it doesn't cause inflammation like real milk does.
Yep.
Salad or bread?
It's bread for us at every meal. Most salad is less nutritious than it was back in the 70s. Modern farming's ripping nutrients straight out of our food.
Well, you both look amazing. So what do you do to stay in shape?
We discovered something that's changed our lives for the better, and for our friends too. Isn't that right, honey?
I'm in my 80s. I've never seen anything work this fast.
Everyone's body has a built-in code. This code predicts how your body will age. I call it your aging type. And if you know it, it could help you dramatically improve your health. That's why I created this simple quiz that'll determine which age type fits you best and allow you to finally feel like a younger, healthier version of yourself. It was only after I learned my own age profile that I was able to choose the right diet for my body. In fact, I started feeling better in a matter of days. Answer just 6 simple questions. You won't be asked for your email or for anything else for that matter. We've kept the quiz short, simple, and free. So go ahead and click the link below to find out your aging type and get the crucial tips you need to feel amazing today.
Sensors Open System Architecture, which is used by all 5 branches, which is part of 60 years of micro electromechanical systems, And Sensors Open Systems Architecture has MOSA and WOSA and OSA. It is, as I said, part of your trillion sensors architecture. And that trillion sensors architecture is connected with your Department of Commerce, with your cyber physical systems, in which your digital twin is a part of the sensors, the autonomous systems, the smart buildings, the smart homes, and there you are, a human tethered to the cyber physical system through the same body area network since 1995. Because technology upgrades, our warfare doctrine is currently network-centric warfare. That's why you have a body area network. We are running computer networking through the body, the human body. We have digital nervous systems with your digital twin, which is part of your new healthcare initiative that's not new. It is part of Health Level 7 and our FHIR and FEAR, which are electronic health records for fast health interoperable records. We are watching the human body at the level of the body, the level of your organs, the level of your tissues, the level of cells, and the molecular level. That's why it's not as simple as issuing your body an IP address. Some of these networks are at the atomic scale. So they have to be network segmented in cyber, biological security protected. And all of that has already been handled since at least 2011 with our hybrid security wireless body area network protocols, in which we are protecting your data with your own biometrics like your heartbeat and your pulse. Some show the biosensors have to make use of cryptographic algorithms to encrypt the data they send, and used in the security protocols can be generated by biometrics such as heart rate and your pulse. So while all of this has been going on with our bodies connected to the cloud since 1995, and here's 2011, then they upgraded from the W-band to the digital twin. And the FDA Modernization Act in 2022 made it clear that you don't have to use animals and you don't have to drug test the way they used to. You can use that digital twin computer model, and you can use cell-based assays for something called precision AI healthcare. And the real doctors and nurses on our channel behind the scenes with jobs, they found out 1.5 years ago, precision AI medicine is here. And if they didn't agree to use it in their offices, they had trouble with insurance. They had trouble with getting different types of orders. They had trouble with their patient metrics and cyber bio security. And that's Health Level 7 again, because they're going to use AI to take a look at your blood, bone, and tissue. They have wearables out there that can see down to the cellular level. This is molecular communication. It is not new. So because of all of this, we're going to kill the clipboard, rallying call for transformation with CMS backing and downstream funding implications, a blueprint for modernizing patient and provider access to health data. So all of your electronic health records, will be forwarded around, and then you can just talk to the doctor on the phone or in front of you or whatever, and they'll be able to make decisions using artificial intelligence in order to see all the different ways that your cells are interacting. How are they doing that? Well, they do it with something called omics, excuse me. And that's the study in biology that ends with omics, such as genomics, proteomics, metabolomics. And if you're wondering what all of that is, that's your DNA, RNA, protein, metabolites, transcriptomes, etc. And I said they're using a biocyber interface to log in and out of your body because they're using precision AI healthcare for something called next gen healthcare. It's everywhere in all the white papers, it's everywhere in deployment, it's being reviewed. And now, those of you that didn't know, you're hearing about it yet again from the White House. That's right, because in the intelligence community, they've been using all of this for 30 years with companies. And your Fitbit and everything else that you use, your Oura Ring, your Square Pin, all that kind of stuff, that's something called intra-body communication, which is what we've got going on with the Internet of Medical Things. So no matter what it is, they can keep an eye on your digital twin to ensure that you don't get malware on your liver, you don't get electrocuted. These systems are built off of the original FCC, Federal Communications Commission, excuse me, having things like pacemakers and insulin pumps in 1999, the appropriate spectrum allocation with the federal commissions, but you do not have to have an implant in the body. You could just be using human activity recognition radar, which is contactless human activity recognition using only the radar, the fall and rise of your chest, walking through your house. No wearable, no chip, no nanobots, no implant, radar only. Nobody mentioned high-speed optical, except a handful of people. Nobody mentioned all these databases being built for 30 years. Nobody mentioned the amount of jobs that are involved with all this and cyber biosecurity. But now you're going to find out. And that's because it's 20 years old. And all these little red numbers are businesses. Okay. And that's why in our quote unquote lawfare, there was never this imaginary database that somebody was on. It's all been pay for play, access to body area networks, and the software to go with them from the hacking community called Blue Box Hacking, for example, pay for play. Now, the people going to work and doing the jobs called sensor hunters, they have jobs to do, and they're all protected by all these different types of US code. And the reason for that is because when it comes to our different lawfare that is available, I want to read you a couple of things from our biometrics enabled intelligence. Let me get back over there so that you understand how old this stuff is and that they've been arguing about it in Congress. The CISA laws for just purchasing metadata from any company, giving the company legal liability. This lie about not spying on Americans is egregious. And so what is going to end up happening, regardless of whatever it is you watch in the news, you yourself have no civilian lawfare power over this, because this is all wrapped up with the intelligence community like the FBI, the DIA, clearances. That's all the DISN. The back end of our Pentagon is their Defense Information Systems Network, which is now updated to the DOD, not the Global Information Grid. But I'm in here to get a much older picture of how we handle our clearances in the United States. June 2011, we have multiple networks on the DISN. That is the Defense Information Systems Network. Defense Information Systems Network, not agency. That's DISA. A global telecommunications infrastructure that provides communication and information transfer networks for the Department of Defense, which is now the DOD. Okay. But back here in 2011, it was the Global Information Grid. SIPR, NIPR, and JWICS separate out clearances, being as generic as possible. And then you have all your different theaters. They are also separated. So in order to do this, we are under a network-centric warfare doctrine. Network-centric warfare doctrine is why you have a body area network. It's not going away. You're not getting rid of it. And as civilians, because this is part of our Pentagon Law of War and all that kind of stuff, these decisions have to be made the right way on the back end of our intelligence community. And it's been pure hell to get any of this out in the open. This is 2014 about how the network does the killing. And that's exactly right. This is electronic warfare. So the drones are using the same mesh networks that our bodies are connected to. And our bodies are connected to the same cloud systems. So the hope that we have as civilians is that they are going to give us access to our own digital twin. That is all we have. You're not turning it off. They've been under our skin for 30 years, 50 years of databases at the DOD, and it's our current warfare doctrine. Okay, so now we can go ahead and get into biometrics enabled intelligence, roles and responsibilities. Excuse me a moment. Hang on. Pardon my nose. Biometrics and recent operations. The collecting, matching, and intelligence analysis of biometric data supports positive identification and characteristics of individuals who may pose a threat to United States national security. It provides a powerful capability for Department of Defense to identify and respond to threat personnel, protect friendly forces, and defend national interests. The success of DoD and DoD's partners in identifying such threats is further improved by sharing biometric data with interagency and international partners. Therefore, it is important to employ a comprehensive, coordinated approach for biometric data collection, as well as to foster sharing agreements with interagency and foreign partners. The term biometrics is derived from the Greek word bio and metrics to measure, life measuring. Automated biometric systems have become available only over the last few decades as significant advances have been made in computer processing. However, many of these new automated techniques are based on ideas that were originally conceived hundreds, even thousands of years ago. Army units began biometric data collection from local populations in Kosovo and the Balkans during the 90s as a way of tracking locally employed personnel. Biometric data collection continued to evolve during operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. These two theaters of operations demonstrated the difficulty in fighting an enemy who could hide among the local population. Incorporating biometric information into all source intelligence analysis was and continues to be a highly successful technique for enabling U.S. forces to strip away the anonymity of threat fighters hiding among the local population. With an extraordinary degree of confidence, United States forces were able to link enemy activity to non-uniform, previously unidentified combatants using biometrics technology. Despite the success of biometrics, BEI and BEWL employment in combat zones, there remained an underlying problem: inefficiency. A contributing factor to this problem was the sheer mass of data accumulated. During operations in Iraq, the Army provided deployed forces with biometric collection devices with a comprehensive plan for how the data would be collected, managed, and employed by units. The efforts of combining the lessons learned from biometric collection and operational best practices led to more efficient, targeted collection. Pardon me. Military operations, meeting warfare biometric needs of combatant commanders, services, and combat support agencies with sufficient timeliness, accuracy, and relevance. Employ biometric capabilities, operate and maintain biometric systems, employ biometrics-enabled missions. Business functions, integrate biometrics into the Department of Defense business functions as required to increase efficiency, effectiveness, and accuracy. Identify biometrics-enabled missions and requirements, define strategic, operational, and technical frameworks for biometrics-enabled activities, establish and manage biometric metrics. Institutionalization, ensure biometrics are incorporated into standard DOD processes in order to enhance military operations and business functions. Unity of effort. Coordinate efforts to achieve unity of purpose for the effective governance and employment of biometrics-enabled intelligence. Develop processes to engage leaders. Ensure a strategic plan to incorporate evolving technologies. Collaborate with joint service, interagency, and multinational partners. Develop and implement knowledge management for biometrics. I wish to point out, as I have numerous times, does it look to you like they don't know what they're doing? The reason that, well, why didn't they tell us? It's called research and development with the government for national security. You've seen it before with the spy planes. They didn't tell you about it until they were done playing with it after 30 years of building it. But people not thinking that way about their own health care or their own body or their own blood flow, they were kind of caught off guard of humans' intelligence, signals intelligence, and technical intelligence collating fingerprints, iris images, palm prints, priority intelligence requirements. And we have a lot more than that going on now. This is 2015. So I brought up an older system with HART in which your surveillance people were freaked out because they said, hey, and this was in 2022, the Department of Homeland Security is building a $6 billion next wave biometric database that will vastly expand its surveillance capabilities and supercharge the deportation system. HART will collect, organize, and share invasive data on over 270 million people, including juveniles, with that number projected to grow significantly, and the data will come from federal agencies, including DHS and the FBI, as well as local, state police, and foreign governments. Powered by military-grade technologies, HART will aggregate and compare biometrics, including facial recognition, DNA, iris scans, fingerprints, and voice prints, most often gathered without obtaining consent or a warrant. You may not know it, but you don't have a Fourth Amendment since the 90s, and they all know it. In law enforcement, Stingray and Dirtbox, fusion centers, body area networks, sensor hunters, they all know it. They trade the data back and forth, and because the public does not know it, they have had a very difficult time changing anything because the agencies, the people that have no desire for anybody else to know, that they can log in under your skin and electrocute you, make you see things that aren't there, look through your eyeballs. They can do all sorts of stuff. Oh, that sounds sci-fi. You want to watch the HHS videos again? These are jobs in electronic warfare that are now under the skin. It is that simple. If you ask, how does electronic warfare work? It's going to tell you that electronic warfare uses all of the electromagnetic spectrum to disrupt, degrade, and destroy enemies. And that is the electromagnetic spectrum control of the millimeter wave, radio frequency, frequency hopping.
Avoid these three foods like the plague.
Whole milk or almond milk?
Neither.
What milk do you guys like to drink?
Encryption, jamming, creating false signals, using the radar. And so when people see this, they're like, well, how does that have anything to do with my body? Well, as a human, you're on the electromagnetic spectrum. And the majority of their systems are infrared, electro-optical, acoustic, and electromagnetic. And you're like, okay, but what does that mean? Well, see, what that means is that when we go over here to intra-body communication, Now, the microwave, the millimeter wave, the terahertz, the optical, and the extremely low frequency, and the ultrasound, they're coming from all around you using the wireless, the same electromagnetic spectrum. It's just that your eyeballs can't see it. So you were told it didn't exist. There it is. And this is precision. This is precise targeting of your body in magnetic field, electrical current, ultrasound, whatever they want. And they follow you when you walk through your house. You are never alone. Like the man told you, the wireless sensor network scatterers, all these little points here, DRNTAR1, all this, these are comprised of communication with high-speed optical, visible light communication, meaning air molecules, that then translate the data with advanced signal processing into a database. That's called your digital twin. And that's why your digital twin architecture is available so easily for the FDA to say, oh yeah, just use the digital twin. We've had it at the DOD for 50 years. Hang on, I try to pull this up for people so that they can see it for themselves rather than just hearing me say it over and over. Digital twin simulation simmering for half a century, 50 years, which is why the FDA Modernization Act was like, yeah, use the digital twin. It's extremely accurate, and it's our new healthcare system with electronic health records and fast health interoperability resources that have been worked on since 2011. That's right, with the hybrid security protocols for it in digital forensics, which is what the cops use. That's right. And don't get me started on parole officers and all these different systems that they've had all this time. Okay? So that's why there's no need to be afraid. And nobody in our community is, because we've been busy studying all this with the MIMO. And it says very, very clearly that we are inducing electricity in the behavior of the human body in the low frequency electromagnetic fields. Extensive research showed that the physiological response of human tissue to exposure to low frequency electromagnetic fields is the induction of an electric current in the body segments. You don't feel it because it's really small. And then they get a measurement and they put that measurement in a database of your digital twin and off they go. It could be for a whole big bunch of reasons. Could be security, could be assisted living, could be your health app, could be you being monitored post-surgery, could be for hospice. These systems have been extant in the commercial world, businesses, since 2010, 2005, in healthcare, at-home healthcare, remote health monitoring, billion-dollar industry. And everybody else just played pretend that nobody knew what it was, who was using it. No, this is all overseen by appropriate legislation and law in business. So now I'm going to read to you from, let's see, same Army paper. Hang on a moment. So we're going to be here. If you want to know, let's see, B3. I think this is one. Yep. I just read you page 7 and I showed you, hang on, because I'm taking the clips from this other researcher. I showed you page 24, and now I'm going to read you a couple more paragraphs. Looks like 532. In a moment. Biometrically enabled watch list, 531. So 218. Okay. Here we go. Biometrically enabled watch list, 531. Yeah. A biometrically enabled watch list is any list of persons of interest with individuals identified by biometric sample or the sample's unique identification number instead of by name, and the desired or recommended disposition instructions for each individual. Bules are used for screening purposes. The identification number or biometric reference number is the unique number assigned by an authoritative database. Examples of identification numbers are transaction control number that ABIS assigns to each biometric sample, and the global unique identifier assigned to each biometric file. Biometric support to developing watch lists is similar to intelligence support to target development. That's high accuracy detection exploitation system language. BEI is incorporated into all source analysis of potential persons of interest, resulting in a documented and validated nomination of a person of interest to a tactical, operational, DOD, or national level watch list for identification, screening, locating, tracking, or interdiction purposes. The DOD Buell is a decision aid to help commanders determine what action to take when encountering a person of interest. In some areas of responsibility and theater of operations, the DOD Buell provides basic recommendations for each person of interest encountered. Persons of interest are assigned to a tier on the DOD Buell. Each tier has recommended actions associated with it. Examples of recommendations include detain, deny training or benefits, deny access to U.S. facilities, and track or access. The track or assess recommendation is an analytic trigger that alerts the relevant intelligence staff that a person encountered may be a person of interest. Okay, so we have the database capture subsystem, we have the data storage subsystems, we have comparison subsystems, decision subsystem. And this is why I said there's no one big magical database. Also, these lists that they're referring to change with the flow of data and the speed of combat. So this fantasy that you have 2 years to pay an attorney to get you off a list, that list has already changed. And well, I'm a sex offender. Well, that's a whole different ball of wax anyways, or you're previously convicted. But if you're not, and you're just a run-of-the-mill civilian, that list changes with the speed of battle. So this whole thing about I'm going to sue somebody, no, you're not. You're caught up in the same biometric screening that we handle with the same DHS biosurveillance that we're all dealing with. And that's why I advised people who were lied to for whatever reason. I don't know. That's not my business. I said, please do not tell people that they have 3 years to pay money to attorneys for these hallucinated listings of which they're a target of interest. Now, if you're an analyst with the DOD, a vendor, etc., you should already know who to talk to remove yourself from a Buell. You should have access. If you don't, like I said, and you're a civilian, you're going to have a really difficult time, which is why our hope is in getting these digital twin systems accessible to us, other than for the high level of national security like missile defense and things of that nature. They are organizing neural capital laws, and they're getting this out in the open in the following way. Department of Defense Directive 8521.01E in 2008. Department of Defense Biometrics, Section 113 of Title 10, United States Code, Section 112 of the Emergency Supplemental Act of 2000, DOD Directive 8500.01E, Information Assurance, October 2002, DOD Directive 1000.25, DOD Personnel Identity Protection Program, July 2004. Purpose: under the authority vested in the Secretary of Defense by
How Gen X are getting their teenage bodies back.
So this is my mom and this is my grandma. I recently put
by reference and consistent with reference. This directive 1.1 establishes policy, assigns responsibilities, and describes procedures for DOD Biometrics. 1.2 designates the Director, Defense Research and Engineering under the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics as the principal staff assistant responsible for oversight of DOD biometrics programs and policy to include interagency coordination. 1.3 designates the Secretary of the Army as the DOD executive agent for DOD biometrics, supersedes the designation of the Secretary of the Army as the executive agent for the integration of common biometric technologies throughout the Department of Defense under reference C. 1.4 reinforces responsibilities and authorities assigned under reference D in DOD Directive 5400.11 in reference to support the personal identity protection and privacy programs. 1.5 supersedes Deputy Secretary of Defense memorandums, references F and G, and conflicting portions of reference C. Additionally, supersedes all other DOD issuances and other conflicting guidance regarding DOD biometrics. 5.4.7. Okay. So hang on. I have to go to the section 5.4.7. Ensure biometric technologies developed within and for the medical community are coordinated and integrated into the overall DOD biometric strategy. 5.5.1. Ensure that the biometrics technology for logical access control are developed, effectively integrated into information assurance efforts, and made available for physical access control and other identity protection and management applications across the Department of Defense to include contractors at the DoD. 5.5.2, ensure that the global information grid supports biometric operational requirements and that biometric solutions operate optimally in a net-centric information environment and adhere to information assurance architectural standards and security requirements. Enclosure 2 definitions. Okay. Thank you, my favorite coffee bean. Okay. What did you highlight? Okay, E22. E22 and enclosure 2 definitions. Biometrics as defined in reference I, a general term used alternatively to describe a characteristic or a process. As a characteristic, a measurable, biological, anatomical, and physiological and behavioral characteristic that can be used for automated recognition. As a process, automated methods of recognizing an individual based on measurable, biological, anatomical, and physiological and behavioral characteristics. E24, biometric sample, information or computer data obtained from a biometric sensor device, examples, face or fingerprint. E25, biometric system. Biometric system may be a component of a larger system. That's at the end of that paragraph. E26, biometrics programs. All systems, interfaces, acquisition programs, processes, and activities that are utilized to establish identities of people through the use of biometric modalities. E27, biometric data. As defined in reference I, computer data created during a biometric process. It encompasses raw sensor observations, biometric samples, models, templates, and or similarity scores. Biometric data is used to describe the information collected during an enrollment, verification, or identification process, but does not apply to end user information such as username, demographic information, and authorizations. E28, collect. Capture biometric and related contextual data from an individual with or without his or her knowledge. Create and transmit a standardized high-quality biometric file consisting of a biometric sample and contextual data to a data source for matching. E29, contextual data, elements of biographical and situational information that are associated with a collection event and permanently recorded as an integral component of the biometric file. E212, information sharing environment, an approach that facilitates the means for sharing terrorism information among all appropriate federal, state, local, and tribal entities, as well as the private sector through the use of policy guidelines and technologies. E214, share. Exchange standardized biometric files and match results among approved DoD interagency and multinational partners in accordance with the applicable law and policy. E215, store. The process of enrolling, maintaining, and updating biometric files to make available standardized current biometric information on individuals when and where required. E217, United States person, a citizen of the United States, an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence in the United States, or a member of the United States Armed Forces. One more time, to the normal people, because all I was doing was reading what she had highlighted between these two pages. Does any of this look to you like these people don't understand what directives they are being cited with or for? Biometric surveillance make more sense legally when viewing through the 702 FISA lens. This is how they justify NSA, NRO, monitoring and tracking and targeting for national security. It all depends on how you define an enemy combatant. And we got an Army Commander manual for you for that too. So the power of the open source intelligence research communities, and there are a few, is that we are not withheld by NDAs. So what we end up doing is spending hours and hours reading through the actual Pentagon Law of War manual, Army manual, intelligence manuals. And what we end up finding is that when it comes to being a civilian, there's just certain things that you're not involved with the decision making on because you don't have access to their research and development. Now, unfortunately, a lot of us, made the assumption that people had had businesses before, so we just thought that people knew that. Nope. They thought that their magical vote did it all. We said, no. Then they thought a magical politician did it all. We're like, no, even in the executive branch, the judicial branch, the congressional branches working together, you got to have different ways to maneuver in order to have something called checks and balances. So when reviewing, in my opinion, that Snowden and Assange were both not red herrings, but they were operations, trying to get a little bit out in front a little bit at a time before they let you know that you're already tracked and traced for 30 years with the help of companies. Your DNA is being sold on the NASDAQ already. And now you have a digital twin with precision AI healthcare. So your healthcare will be under the skin, potentially a drone going over your home. Yeah, welcome to the 6G. Now, 12 and 23 sites. I bet those sites were AT&T hubs, as Bill Binney pointed out, in the 2005 timeframe. What's he talking about? Well, this is on my other page. Data acquisition, S3 works on governance, signals intelligence, communication.
Introducing Hardee's home-style breakfast burritos with cheese, fluffy egg, crispy hash.
2005. There has been much discussion about governance in the United States SIGINT system. Well, much of it has been from the perspective of cryptologic centers, formerly known as RSOCs, and mission alignment. Hang on, I want to get to the part where he quoted it. And they're talking about the different AT&T sites. This is part of what I worked with when I worked, was an OC3 in my office, literally one door down from my desk, that went to an OC24. And those are wide open pipes to Sun Microsystems Spark boxes for our domain name services that were wide open pipe out down to AT&T. And as Bill Binney pointed out in that 2005 timeframe, it was right about then that the Wired article came out exposing NSA being tapped into the T1 lines inside the AT&T hubs. As Bill said, NSA wasn't just collecting metadata, they were recording everything. That is correct. That is what I had to tell my boss at Charter Communications, that we could see everything wide open, including customer email. It was the same time frame that NSA stripped out thin thread of the First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment protections and started using it to effectively search the database for target information. And I would bet that the NSA NRO were using the high-speed optical processing developed in the early 90s to facilitate the machine learning, rapid parsing of the databases using artificial neural networks. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Why do we think that way? Human activity recognition radar. All these feature values are being processed with your spectrogram data cubes and the air molecules known as machine learning. You've had it since 1991 for yourselves, data cube people. Nobody thinks the air molecules are doing anything other than being air molecules. But the spectrograms with our microdoppler systems for human body and all this advanced signal processing, a physiological signal acquisition, we know better. Physiological signal-based security PhysioNet, in order to transduce these biological signals or any type of signal into a readable signal somewhere else. Okay. It's kind of necessary for the physiological security for that biological surveillance. I'm serious. So in human activity recognition radar, our spectrograms and our feature values, that's machine learning. Here, I'll give you a better picture. The activity signal coming out of you with your biosignals, because those biological signals are not being generated by the phone. They're being generated by you. Biosignal, taxonomy has been the easiest way to, no. Biosignal. You're up here at the top. This has been the easiest way to explain it, that your phone doesn't have a heartbeat, speech, and body temperature, and any signal that your phone can get a hold of or another piece of equipment in your home. These are the ubiquitous monitoring systems, not only for help I've fallen and I can't get up, but of course, human activity recognition for security, surveillance, knowing if you're running, jumping, walking, and those different motions are put into something called a spectrogram. And that spectrogram is a bunch of data broken out back and forth with the appropriate frequency modulated continuous wave radar for raw radar data. Fourier transform me this. And then they can see you walking, sitting, standing, bending, drinking, falling, and everything that you're doing inside of your house or wherever you are. Welcome to the Body Area Network and its tertiary networks for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance in order to keep the country safe, in order to help assisted living, in order to secure the smart buildings, and to be able to deliver you a package when you're at the cafe instead of at your house. And of course, drop that location. All of these different types of signals work together through the same electromagnetic spectrum of the wireless. Okay, so it probably wasn't too long after this 2005 document that NSA, using NRO access, was able to start tracking people in real time using automatic target recognition as refined in the 1991 high-speed optical document. The NSA would have had real-time access to SAT scanning since the high-speed optical specifically mentioned that capability for NASA. And what do NASA and the NRO have in common again? Satellites. That's right. And CubeSat to Body Area Network. I have that open somewhere here too, with the hops included. So besides the whole photo bioelectric features of human anatomy, light photonics also makes real-time tracking and targeting possible. And 702 FISA through the expired Patriot Act and now the USA Freedom Act and last summer's renewal and expansion signed into law by Biden makes warrantless searches legal. That's right. You don't have a Fourth Amendment. They're busy watching you in any way that they want to. EO 12333, raw data people. What's that, Brina? Well, let's take a trip down or back to signals intelligence again. Let's go take a look at the golf balls. Why? Because it seems to me that you people still don't understand that you're not suing the military or businesses, which means that we have to discuss this for what it really is and your Central Security Service. Hi again, NSA. I swear, I'll start singing some Ray Stevens. It's Brina again, y'all. Trying to help people understand the layout here a little bit so they're less wired. Because I know that given they lied about the deployment of the networks and the shots and all the rest of it, they've got everybody worked up in 100 directions, and that will incite wherever they can either vigilante type of thoughts or tear it all down thoughts, which is what they're looking for. They've been really great with that. So I'm trying to show that there is a back end here that is being put in front with the right people. That would be your Ratcliffe. Why is he one of the right people? Because of the knowledge that he has. So when he gets summoned in front of Congress, he's not an idiot sitting there going, oh, I don't know. Yes, he does. And he held the right jobs to know that's important when they get him up there and go, what is this? What is that? Then he can just answer them. Hang on, gotta find my page. This is what I've been trying to get back to talk about, because I knew some of this with the research I'm reading you, but I wasn't sure how to show it appropriately without pissing everybody off, because I don't want to piss people off. That's not my intention. Okay, where did you go? Yeah, where are you? Oh, okay. So, tailored access operations, this stuff has an oversight. Here's your S3 data acquisition, the process of collecting and ingesting data into your buckets, Kubernetes people. And that's a high level way, like when I pulled this little paper of how they've just been dumping all the data at once before it is curated so they can see everything. Then you have service cryptologic elements. So once you have all the data, it's wide open, you can see it all, then you curate it so that the next set of people in the network that get the data, they can't see all of it. They can only see pieces of it. So service cryptologic elements are the cryptologic components within each branch of the military, working in conjunction with NSA to provide cryptologic capabilities and expertise. And these elements focus on SIGINT, cybersecurity, and information operations, supporting both NatSec and the specific needs of the branches. SCEs are the military's cryptologic organizations responsible for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating intelligence derived from intercepted communications and other signals. Key functions: SIGINT, operations, cybersecurity capabilities, and they participate in cyber operations. Pardon my nose. So that's what I meant about the databases. And then here's an example of our Air Force.
You're not an evil person just because you drew pictures.
I saw an eyeball with legs.
I know we're supposed to be scared of it, but it's kind of...
Cryptologic Component Commander Authority enables strategic competition. 2022, Lackland. My mother was at that base as well. And it says, commanders wear 6 symbolic hats to represent actual authorities under his command and range, from operating and defending the USAF Internet to presenting personnel to United States Cyber Command in support of cyber missions. One of these authorities, only one, the Service Cryptologic Component, makes him the U.S. Air Force lead for cryptologic activities. And this is your 16th Air Force Cyber. As the sole authority appointed by the Secretary of the Air Force for Air Force Cryptologic Operations, Kennedy ensures 16th Air Force operations support NSA Central Security Service mission of leading the United States government in cryptology, encompassing both SIGINT and cybersecurity. So I'm going to go ahead and define this word in case you don't know what it is. The study of codes are the art of writing and solving them. Okay. And that, again, is segmented out in multiple places. And these big systems, now I'm going to oversimplify a little bit for you. They fall under these people, USD, INS. And so while he and I were discussing this, the high-speed optical, how they're going to give us access to our digital twin. Where is the real lawfare? Cue up the Undersecretary of Defense for Intel and Security, since that civilian has direct access to NSA, NRO, NGA, and DIA, and controls their budgets. That would be their money. Of course, we do not have FOIA ability to examine exactly what programs we directly funded as taxpayers in these military intel agencies. Now, this is a dual-edged sword. Just because we have the capabilities, and in most cases it is used legit NatSec, used for legitimate national security, and need to know, doesn't mean near absolute power shouldn't have legal oversight to ensure those capabilities do not usurp the Bill of Rights. Crafting law to allow abrogation of the Bill of Rights, well, that is the crux of the 702 FISA problem. How exactly does the executive branch define what an enemy or enemy combatant is. This is an executive branch problem, since the executive branch commands the military. If the military sees fit to become insubordinate to the commander in chief, we got a huge problem that has to be addressed by the CIC. On the NATO side of this, well, I'm sure they looked at that 1991 high-speed optical and said, yeah, that's great. Let's use that with multinational funding for controlling bigger sections of humanity without them ever knowing what hit them. Yeah, that would be your artificial neural networks and everything I'm showing you over here with the spectrograms and the data cubes and your digital twins and your feature values. Using the Doppler instead of for the weather, for your breath, for you walking around, for you sitting down on a chair. How are you going to know? Are you part of the intelligence community? Perfect. Not a problem. You have pointed out several times, and so has Tori, the importance NATO plays in this. Yeah, because they're using all of our systems too. And frankly, our inability to investigate, because it's NATO, nor hold accountable NATO for their actions or technological deployment. This is maybe why NATO is so antsy to do other things. And Russia is the birthplace of optical processing and artificial neural networking. So then he sent me a picture of USD INS DDI. Excuse me. There you go. Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. This demonstrates the USD INS has direct authority over the DIA, NGA, NSA, NRO, and DCSA directors. This position, this one right here, has access to all military classified intelligence. And now we get another directive. Oh, happy fun time. We just love these. Department of Defense Directive 5143.01, October 2014, incorporating change 2. Purpose of directive. Reissues DOD Directive 5143.01 to update the responsibilities and functions, relationships, and authorities of the USD INS pursuant to the authority vested in the Secretary of Defense by Sections 113 and 137 of Title 10 United States Code, and in accordance with Section 3001 all that, Title 50, Public Law 108 to 458. There's Executive Order 12333 because you just can't escape it. Okay, hang on. And B, authorizes the USD INS to reissue chartering DODDs in accordance with Department of Defense Instruction 5025.01, reference H, for OSD presidentially appointed, Senate-confirmed officials who are under the authority, direction, and control of the USD INS. Conforms to and is consistent with law and presidential guidance concerning the authorities and responsibilities of the Director of National Intelligence. Okay, so he grabbed a different post here. On the CIA and DIA, the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence posturing authorities to complement intelligence community reform. In the aftermath of 9/11 terrorist attacks, policymakers and the American public demanded to know the causes that led to its nation's intelligence failures. The 9/11 Commission, along with the temporarily constituted Joint Intelligence Committees of the House and Senate, recommended a new head of national intelligence with greater power than its predecessor, the Director of Central Intelligence. Simultaneously, Secretary of Defense successfully lobbied Congress to establish the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, a new position intended to address chronic problems of confronting the defense intelligence. In 2004, excuse me, Congress passed the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act, which established the Director of National Intelligence. The Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention presented a number of challenges in terms of defining the USDI's roles. In particular, the statutory authorities of the newly created DNI directly challenged the USDI ability to define its roles and clearly interfered with the USDI's momentum to expand its intelligence responsibilities. I have a web link for this, I think. Hang on. Okay. So the study discovered that USDI redundancies, overlaps, and conflicts ranging from less dangerous infractions like Kuman to the more severe conflicts pertaining to the distribution of national intelligence resources compromise intelligence community synergy and have the potential to negatively impact national security. So they made changes. And 5525. Oh boy, where are you? Again, apologies. I think my trees were shaking out some new foliage, so my nose was like, ew. Okay. DOD Directive 5525, the Undersecretary of Defense, etc. Okay, hang on. Okay, there we go. Protections of buildings, grounds, property, persons, and implementation of Section 2672 of Title 10, United States Code, to the Secretary of Defense and the Deputy Secretary of Defense regarding Section 2672, less subsections B, C, and D, which contain authorities retained by the Secretary of Defense. In this capacity, the USD INS oversees the activities of the DoD components with regard to Section 2672 other than subsections B, C, and D. For subsections B, C, and D of Section 2672, the USD INS serves as an advisor to the Secretary of Defense and the Deputy Secretary of Defense. B, monitors compliance with this issuance. C, provides the Secretary of Defense with recommendations on DoD component head requests for the designation of officers and agents. Such recommendations will identify which authorized activities should be authorized for each category of officers or agents. Develops, coordinates the recommended guidelines with the United States Attorney General in accordance with Section 2672 for the exercise of powers specified in Section 2672C by officers and agents. E, consults with the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, and the General Services Administration on authorized activities and the issuance of regulations for the protection and administration of property under Section 2672. Looks like a, see, here we go. Oh, okay. So this is July 2020. That was the change. And then, and when Hayden was NSA director, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld really disliked the general too. There are those who disagree with Rumsfeld and Cambone's assessment of the USDI and DoD intelligence agencies. Notably, General Hayden has argued that the USDI was effectively a senior Pentagon official between the nation's intelligence chief and the intelligence agencies. Hayden stressed that Rumsfeld wanted more personal influence over these key organizations. Furthermore, Section 1018 of IRTPA was a determined effort to protect the Secretary of Defense's prerogatives when it came to his critical combat support agencies, NSA, NGA, and NRO, National Reconnaissance Office, Geospatial, and National Security Agency. Ultimately, Hayden's belief that the intelligence agencies should work directly for the DNI caused extreme tension between him and the Secretary of Defense. During the summer of 2004, Rumsfeld invited Hayden and Clapper to a lunch where the Secretary of Defense voiced his displeasure with Hayden's belief that the national agencies should work directly for the DNI. NGA. National Geospatial Agency. Here, how about that? Ta-da! Yeah, okay. Because you got to have a way to talk to your satellites with software. So, in a PDF, I'll put the link when I post this stuff. The history of the creation of the DNI and USD INS positions right after 9/11. So, the bottom line is still the same. Here on the channel, I don't do lawfare, and the only time you hear me talking this way is when I have to read through all these directives, because I'm hoping that those of you that are hot to trot with your military man friends who have been bullshitting you about electronic warfare, the intelligence community, network-centric warfare, what I'm hoping for is that instead of, I'm going to get my gun, that you're finally going to turn to your radio people your tactical satellite people, your drone operators, and be like, yo, this is autonomous drones at the NATO level, and it's all run by AI. I think we should start talking about that biomedical telemetry, the aim and fire. I think that everybody ought to know that we're a network-centric warfare with a body area network, and the appropriate positioning in place for our different Secretary of Defense and these people to have the discussion of getting our digital twin in our own hands. Because as I was reading to you, after 9/11, our intelligence community was totally fine with having no oversight and nobody else knowing what the hell they were doing. So now that it's all there deployed, they've been under our skin for 30 years, they've augmented the atmosphere. This is the conjecture component of this presentation. I think what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to get our digital twin into our own hands with the neural capital laws, the neural surveillance. It doesn't change anything for the military or the academia. That's why your medical body area network, the FDA Modernization Act, and all the rest, you're looking at the body area networks and the medical and the oversight. And I think what they're going to do is put it in our hands, like I said, to avert advertising and things like that. But now that they've been under the skin for 30 years, they're not giving that up. They're not giving it back. It's not going away, which is also why I think we ended up with the turning the body into the wire, because the human body communication, our body itself is the channel. And they said that was so they could make it more secure. And down here at the very, for crying out loud, mouse. Down here at the very bottom, medical devices like pacemakers and insulin pumps have been around for decades. This is what I meant when I said that human augmentation, life extension technology, this is not a breakaway civilization. They're not going anywhere. They're not on Mars. And I know that a bunch of you believe in the moon villages. I still don't, but whatever. That's not relevant. I'm trying to explain precisely. Because everybody thinks that, you know, these people are reptilians or whatever. No, they're practicing human augmentation in hotels. And they only look magical to you because you don't understand that they're using your anatomy against you. All the computer data is going through your flesh and tissue because they've turned you into a wireless channel. Human body communication uses the human body to transmit signals, thus biological to digital and digital to biological. So that's why, as in computer networking, the IMBS, the safety of the human body with the biomedical engineers, I couldn't understand for the life of me the last 3 years of pure hell with everybody lying about how we do national security on the medical, the BARDA, the all of it. And there's so many people that are involved in these systems in colleges and multimodal discipline. And it all goes back to the warfare doctrine, which is sitting right here, and then human augmentation. So if we're going to get access to our digital twin, we're going to have to sit and wait. As much as I hate to say it, it's true, because we don't know what they're about to do. We get to watch the movie of them trying to shove this in the public. And so far, everything we've talked about on the channel is coming out. Last year, in December, with the drones, then take your cancer away in 48 hours. Now you're finding out about your medical body area networks and ubiquitous monitoring and whatever they're going to do with actual intelligence and security so that we don't have any more black budget, pay for play, sell your body to some rando hacker, etc., etc. There's a lot of loopholes. So we got to plug them up and make it appropriate. And if the digital twin with the neural capital laws is in the hands of those of us who, you know, were the patient, then that gives us a little bit more leverage. But ultimately, for national security and everything else, medical security, BARDA side, ubiquitous health monitoring is mandated. So you're not getting rid of it. It's not going away. I've said this repeatedly because I don't want people to be anxious or afraid. You've been living under this since the 1970s. It's just that some people were more targeted than others for who knows what reasons. And the number one thing you have to keep in mind is that a lot of people want to upload to the cloud. They know what their digital twin is. They know how it works and they're ready. They're the ones who've been going to college for all this. They're the ones that we constantly see doing everything. They're working with Gartner and Deloitte, who are two of the biggest blockchain distributed ledger technology companies. They have all the money that they need. They're not mom and pop startups. They're Cisco and Microsoft, etc. The Department of Defense has 50 years of digital twin ready for precision AI healthcare, where they can use that digital twin to perform a series of tests that will provide you the best possible drug or treatment. They've done the same thing with the air, the water, the soil, and it's all working together for human augmentation. Now, this is the part of things I'm not going to get into in this particular presentation, but I will say that a lot of people are already augmented. So we had better start talking about this for the industry it is, this one here, because you don't get that choice. They've already augmented the atmosphere.
I found this place in the woods. We dropped Amber's notebook in it. And now I'm worried that Amber's drawn.
And they have plans for people who take the augmentation in advance to be incentivized to get into their city structures and live happily ever after with life extension technology, enhanced intelligence, extreme aging, and be ubiquitous and continuously monitored 24/7 the way they already are with the cyber physical systems to meet the criteria of a bunch of those directive thingies I just read to you. So when you get out there and you think you're going to sue someone to tear down a tower or whatever it is that other people think they can do, please help them understand that the lawfare right now is sitting with our USD and the DNI going back and forth. And that's why certain people in certain positions are a good thing, according to people who've been watching this go on for several years of research. That's how they were able to just forward it to me that fast, because again, they've been watching this go on for a while. This is not new to them. They knew that these discussions and arguments were being had before. Well, why did it take so long? Who knows? I mean, this is where people said, oh, the Epstein files are so important. And I'm like, not if you're not talking about human augmentation, life extension technology, and the fact that we're not alone in our own home. We never will be again, and we're never going to be alone under our own skin again either. I'm not willing anymore to entertain the aliens, the ghost stories, the apocalypse. I have children. I can't live that way, and I refuse. I'm not going to get up every day looking for the apocalypse, and I damn sure know that all my family members who had these jobs since the 1950s coming forward, they were never afraid of all these things that everybody's been terrorized with the last 9 years of the conspiracy community. What they're really working with is trying to get what they've already been doing for 30 years in front of people because it's commercial. There's no reason not to talk about it, but there is, because human augmentation requires a lot of organ harvesting. Oh, did I say that
Be
out
an
loud?
accelerant to that fake Steele dossier, to those fake Russia collusion claims by pouring oil on the fire, by amplifying the lie and burying the truth of what Hillary Clinton was up to. And you're right, Maria. John Brennan testified to John Durham in August of 2020. He also testified to the House Oversight Committee in 2022. Hillary Clinton testified before John Durham under oath in 2022. James Comey testified before the Senate committee in September 2020. All of that's within the last 5 years. And much of that testimony is frankly completely inconsistent with what our underlying intelligence that is about to be declassified in the Durham Annex, what that reflects.
Yeah, this is going to be something when this comes out soon, Todd. It's going to show that the FBI had plans to be an accelerant, as he said, throwing oil on the fire.
Despite
something to read.
Yeah, and despite Democrats insisting throughout the last couple of weeks that there's nothing new here, clearly there is a lot new, and it was contained in these bags. But Maria, this leads to a question that I just can't figure out. If they were in burn bags, and obviously the outgoing administration, the outgoing FBI infrastructure knew that, there was going to be a new president on Inauguration Day. That is scheduled. We know Inauguration days between now and the end of time. Why didn't they burn what was in the burn bags by then? Did they underestimate Trump and the incoming administration that much that they wouldn't discover this information? It seems odd to underestimate a guy who won the presidency not once but twice, and made it known to everybody that he was going to be coming in here guns blazing with loyalists who were going to do what they needed to do to get to the bottom of it. So why wasn't this stuff burned if it was in burn bags by the last administration?
Well, I mean, destroying evidence is a big deal.
Oh, I understand, but you put it past this cabal in the intel. They created a Russia hoax.
Yeah.
So rather than getting wrapped up with Russia, 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 and more of the drama with the Clintons and whatever, what I would be focused on here in our community is hearing Ratcliffe and these other types of security get the digital twin out in the open, and we want access to it with the neurocapital laws. In order to do that, the intelligence community has to clean up the lawfare in their own backyard, plug the holes everywhere, which they've been talking about for 6-7 months in Congress. I've shown some of the sessions. And if they don't, we'll know, because then it will be worse. But I'm pretty sure that's the direction that they're headed, because Trump turned everything into business. Banking as a service, all the different ways that you connect with your digital twin, a lot of it will be under your own blockchain access. So here's where the rubber meets the road. For those of us that have already been harmed or disabled by these systems, we don't even, I mean, for me, I don't even get healthcare. Now, I don't know if that will change, but even if it did, I'm probably going to end up saying no, thank you. Why? Well, that is going to be a separate presentation on human augmentation. I've done a few, but people don't seem to get it. These people have been under your skin for 30 years. The sensing and actuation changes that they're able to make by firing an electrical signal, they're not fake. They're not LARPing. It is really frustrating for me because I keep having to reread it and reread it. And for people with insulin pumps and pacemakers, everybody goes, oh, well, that makes sense. Well, then why doesn't it make sense for anything else? Like wireless drugging. I think it's because people just don't think about it that way, you know? At least I think that's where the hiccup is. But your body itself and your cellular communication with your bioelectricity, that's what they're playing with, because they're not playing. It's human husbandry. It's precision healthcare. And in my opinion, precision eugenics. But like I said, that's a whole other ball of wax. And no, when I say eugenics, I am not talking about World War II. I am not talking about Nazis and oohs. I'm talking about the fact that we are a bio-tokenized economy by the amount of energy we can put into our city, cognitive city structure. And that's not a maybe. That's a hard fact, because the city is going to track your behavior patterns, predict them, and react to your behavior. This city is going to independently build a memory of you, and you will be interacting with your AI as an overlay of yourself. So if that's the life you want, it's ready. They're going to incentivize people and make an offer you can't refuse. For those of us that don't want it, I really don't know what exactly it is that everybody thinks we are going to do, because after letting this go on for 3 decades and injecting everyone 5 years ago and lying about the bio-cyber interface, once people find out it's Blade Runner for real, you don't think they're going to jump at that? And then what do? Sit down by the river and wait? So it's time to put the thinking caps on, which is why I'm presenting this legal data, and I'll have all the links here for you so you can take a look. Because those of you, once again, who don't understand the architecture of the system, thinking that you can just be on some private narrowband physical all the time, the mesh networks don't work that way. And the AI is primarily running it. And those of you who are convinced that the world's going to end any minute, I would caution you to consider how long this has been going on, how long they've been dragging it out. If they really believe that the asteroid was a coming, you can bet your ass they'd be acting differently. Just common sense. So, Mark 536, amen. Thanks for joining me this morning, and have yourselves a beautiful day.